think that causes the imagination to stretch a lot, and said that the Minister may well be following in the footsteps of Countess Markievicz. I'm sorry, but I don't think there is any comparison. You may be Minister for Labour or Jobs, but there's no comparison between the two ladies. The second Minister, but footsteps now, in fairness. Footsteps is a different matter. She's not a revolutionary. Countess Markievicz was a revolutionary, and clearly the Minister is not a revolutionary. And indeed, what she is talking about today is welcome to see that there is an increase in jobs, but I want to argue that we have to put an emphasis on the type of jobs. The first thing to point out is the disparity between what the live register says about employment figures and what the unemployment figures say. And I know you acknowledge this, but I think it's important to re-emphasise that the live register of the first quarter of this year said there are 315,600 people on that live register. The unemployment figures, on the other hand, are 169,700. There is a difference of nearly 150,000. So it's an important figure to acknowledge. And what that means is that there's this huge tranche of people who are on casual, mostly, probably invariably, low-paid and very part-time work. Many of them are still on job activation schemes, which were and remain hugely controversial, such as Jobs Bridge, Gateway in the local authorities, and initiatives for graduates, which are very, very badly paid. In fact, they're not paid at all. There's lip service paid to them as workers. So there is a huge tranche of the working people in Ireland who are being still very, very badly exploited. Now, other people refer to the figures on the low-waged economy that is Ireland, and those figures that Unite published yesterday do indeed show that our wages are 6% below the European average. And then if you compare us to Northern and Central Europe, which is probably more of a realistic comparison, taken in the Nordic countries and the likes of France, Germany, Belgium, etc., we're 18% below on average in those wages. And one of the reasons for this is because most of the work that is carried out by people, and most of it being part-time and low-paid, is in wholesale, retail and hospitality. And if we were to look at how are we going to bring those workers up to the European average, we would be talking about, for that sector alone, hospitality, wholesale and retail, a pay increase of between 23 and 25%. Now, the Lewis drivers came in for a lot of criticism for looking for increases of this nature. They were on much more indeed than people in the retail industry, but nevertheless, had they won those increases, they would today be setting a trend and pulling up by the bootstraps those who are much more under and disadvantaged in this country, which was one of the reasons why we supported them, because we knew that had they won that struggle, it would help to raise everybody's boats, not the yachts, but the boats in this country. In the past 5 years, workers have had a pay increase of about 1%. On the other hand, managerial and professional grades have pay increases of about 11%. There's a huge inequality in terms of work pay and the nature of work. Most work done by low-paid workers in this country is in finances, call centres, restaurants and hospitality. And I want to put a quick argument here about why, if Ireland is held up globally as a great example of how the free market works, free market policies of little or no regulation, free market policies of moving to privatising public services, leaving everything indeed to the market because it will solve all our problems, how we have to rethink that and look at how do we solve both the problems of workers and wider society in terms of creating our own indigenous industry. And there are lots of indigenous sustainable industries that we could be focusing on and that I would appeal to the Minister to think about over the next period. Starting with renewable energies. Renewable energies in this country could be developed hugely. And we need to look at how we do that. It helps the green economy, it helps our carbon footprint, but it also helps to create and sustain skilled and long-term and proper paid jobs. So does dealing with the housing crisis. We need to build social housing. Why not create a state-funded social housing enterprise that can take bricklayers, plumbers, carpenters off the dole and also provide the education for future workers, skilled workers of this nature in apprenticeships. and we could thereby begin to solve the housing crisis, but they would have to be public and social housing, not going to the private market. So would water conservation. Big row in this Dáil, and for the last 5 years in society has been about water and the fight against privatising water. Conserving water could be dealt with by creating well-sustained, well-paid public jobs in dealing with the leaks, in retrofitting homes with brown and green water methods, in retrofitting homes with dual flush loos, in starting to really look at how do we, excuse me, on the one hand provide decent, sustainable jobs, and on the other hand deal with the real challenges that are needed in the public services. So I want to put that argument. You'd say, how does Councillor Smith and her group propose to pay for it? Well, I'm going to repeat the old mantra. Look at our taxation system, look at what the corporation taxes and the very, very wealthy get away with, and begin to look at progressive taxation as a way of creating sustainable jobs and at the same time dealing with hard-pressed public services.